All right, so for this game, we have what is largely a sequencing game with a bit of a, I guess, a curveball thrown in. So essentially what's going to happen here, we've got these 5 people, Q, R, S, T, and U, and apparently they're going to kind of be placed in positions 1 through 4, and then the other person, the 5th person, is just not going to be placed. So what we can do is we can set this up as largely a sequencing game, and we'll just add an out to keep track of the person who's not going to be among the 4 selected ones. So essentially we have positions 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have an out. And from there, I guess, let's take a look at the rules. So the first rule says, if Q runs, then T is going to have to go immediately after. So I guess we can say that if you have a Q, then we're going to have what is a QT block. Now, actually, that's already kind of significant, isn't it? Because that means that if Q is on the board, I mean, this thing is going to take up half of the board, right? It's 2 out of 4 positions, so that's kind of restrictive already. But I suppose we could also have Q on the outside as well, so we have a little bit of flexibility there. Next. S is not going to go 2nd or 4th, so that's actually nicely restrictive too. S cannot go 2 or 4. So I suppose that leaves S with really only 3 possibilities. It can go into 1, into 3, or it could be out as well. Although if it's out, then I suppose the QT block is then going to bounce in, and that's going to take up half the board, so that's kind of good. Anyways, next, if U is not running, then R is going to have to go 2nd. So, ooh, that's an annoying conditional statement. So if we don't have a U, if U is out, then we are going to have R in the 2nd position specifically. So I suppose contraposed, if R is not 2nd, then we will have a U. And lastly, if R does run 2nd, then U will not run, which really is the same thing, isn't it? Well, not quite the same, but the same thing but backwards, right? So if we have R in 2, then it's going to trigger that U is going to be out. In fact, what we can do here is we can turn this into a bidirectional rule. So we'll just flip the arrow. So this now goes both ways, just to kind of simplify things. So what this means is that either these 2 things have to happen together, or alternatively, these 2 things have to happen together, right? So if U is out, then R will be 2nd, but if R is 2nd equally, U will also be out. So in terms of, I guess, do we exhaust this? I mean, S is kind of restrictive for 1, so is the QT block. They're pretty good, but I mean, S can go into 1, 3, or out, and depending on, I mean, if S is in 3, actually no, even then, because the Q could be out, or the Q could be in 1 and 2. You know what, that feels a little loose. So let's just see what we can do with what we have. The questions themselves, number 12. Which of the following could be the sequence 1st through 4th? So as usual, we're going to go by the rules. First rule, if we have Q, we have to have a QT block. So answer choice A looks legit. Answer choice B doesn't have a Q, so we're fine. C, there we go, this breaks. We have a Q, but we don't have a QT block. They're in the wrong sequence, so answer choice C is out. And then D has no Q, and E does have a QT block, so we're good. Next, S can't be 2nd, can't be 4th. That gets rid of answer choice B pretty easily, and actually no, the rest are okay. Next, if we don't have a U, then we have to have R2. Let's see what we can do. Answer choice A has a U, so that doesn't apply. Answer choice D has a U, so it doesn't apply. And answer choice E, here we go. If there's no U, which there isn't in answer choice E, then R was supposed to go 2nd, and that would get rid of that. And then the last rule is the same thing but backwards. If we do have R2, then we're not supposed to have U, which looks like A would violate because we have R in 2, but then we're supposed to kick out the U. So that leaves us with answer choice D as the correct answer choice to question number 12. And as usual, I suppose let's plug that into the board. We have RUST, which leaves us with Q on the outside. Next, so let's take a look at the local questions. We have question number 16 as the first one. So we've got if U runs first. Well, let's play this out. If we have U in the 1st position, what does that tell us? Well, first of all, I suppose it does trigger this. If we have a U, then we're not supposed to have R in 2nd. Now, I guess that raises 2 questions. First of all, where could we have the R if you wanted to? And that feels like it's pretty flexible. But I guess the other question is also, who could go second if we don't have R in second? Because we know that S certainly can't. So I guess that would have to be either a Q, but then you would have to have a T in 3, or you would have to have T, because that's the only other person that's left. So it looks like we would have two major plays. You know what, let's just split this out. Let's see what we can do with this. So if we have a U, either this is going to be Q and, whoops, T will have to follow, or this is just going to be a T. Now, in the top scenario, S can't be in 4, so S is going to have to be out, and I guess that leaves us with R, who's going to have to be 4th, which is fine, right? If R is not second and U is in, that's consistent. In the bottom scenario, though, I guess Q would have to be out for sure, because we can't have a QT block anymore. And so since S can't go 4th, that would mean that S is going to have to go 3rd, and that leaves us, oh, there it is. R is probably going to be the answer here. The question asks what must be true, and yeah, there it is. Best answer here is answer choice E. R, no matter what, either way you go, R ends up going 4th. The best answer to question 16 is E. Next, number 17. If both Q and S are running, so I guess let's see what we can do with that. If we have Q as well as S in the game, and I suppose it's not going to just be Q, right? We can adjust this. It's going to have to be a QT block as well as S. What does that tell us? I suppose this is, I mean, as far as U and R, that feels a little bit flexible. They seem like they could both still kind of go anyway. We know that S obviously has to go into 1 or 3, and the QT block, I mean, it's going to need space, but if S is in 1, then QT can kind of move around a little bit, and if S is in 3, then I suppose QT would be stuck in 1 and 2. That still feels kind of open, doesn't it, though? You know, let's just split scenarios. We can say, you know what, either S is going to go here, or S is going to go there. No point just kind of staring at the page. Second scenario, QT obviously fall into 1 and 2, and that leaves us with U is going to have to be in. So if R is not second, which it's not, then U is going to have to go here, and that leaves us with whoever's left, R is going to have to be out. Now, top scenario, I guess QT can move around a little bit, so I don't think we know much more. Anyways, let's take a look. Maybe that's enough. The question asks, what or how many runners are there, any one of whom could be first? And I suppose we would actually answer that. Yeah, S and Q could both be first, and those are the only ones at the moment. The best answer choice to question number 17 is B. Next, back to the globals. Number 13, which of the following runners must be selected to run? So for this, we can start with our history, because we know that we've seen Q out, we've seen S out, and we've seen R out. So that's a pretty good start. We can get rid of Q, R, and S. That's A, B, and C. So that leaves us with T and U. And apparently one of these guys has to always be in. Now at this stage, worst case scenario, you can kind of just test it out. And the question is, if it's asking you for who must be in, what you want to start considering is, could they be out? Could we have the alternative? Now, there's a bit of a pattern that LSAT likes to use with these kind of games that answers this question pretty easily. And it happens quite frequently. And it's related to this rule over here. Anytime you come across a situation, and this is a very specific sort of situation, but anytime you come across a situation in which there is only one space on the outside, there's only one option that is not selected. And this can happen in all kinds of different games. This isn't just like a sequencing with an out. There's a lot of situations where you get something similar to this. But anytime there's only one element that is out, and there's a rule that tells you that if you have one thing, then you have to have another. As a rule of thumb, you kind of want to keep in mind that in these situations, the other thing that gets pushed in will always have to be selected. It'll always have to be in. And there's a couple of ways you can kind of get to that. For one, consider the contrapositive. The contrapositive of this rule basically dictates that if you don't have a T, then you won't be able to have a Q. But we can't kick both of them out, right? There's only space for one on the outside. So that means that there's no way to kick out T because you'll have to take the Q with it. Alternatively, another way of looking at this is that As far as Q is concerned, Q is going to either be in or out. Now, if Q is in, then obviously T will follow, right? But if Q is out, then T still has to be in because then Q is the one who is out. No matter what, T has to be selected. So when you come across these kind of situations whereby you're selecting basically everything except for one, right? You have only one out. And if there's a conditional statement that says that if you have an X, then you also must have a Y, you can make a bit of a deduction that says that Y has to be among those selected. The best answer for question number 13 is T. We'll have to have T always on the inside. Now, again, if you didn't pick up that pattern, the way that you would have approached this is by essentially just trying it out. And specifically what that means, you have answer choices D and E, T and U. You would see what happens if one of them is out, and you would see if you could make it work. And if you could allow for one of them to be out, that would disqualify the answer because that means that you don't have to have them in. Next, question number 14. The question of the runners, basically who's going to be chosen, would be resolved if what was true. So what would lock down the game is essentially the question. Answer choice A, R goes first. So let's take a look at this at face value first. If R was first, would that do anything? I suppose that would force the U to be in, because if R is not second, then U will have to be in. But that still seems pretty flexible, right? You would have R over here, and then U is going to go somewhere over there. And it could even go with a QT block, it would seem. And then S could be out, but that would be movable. So yeah, that doesn't seem like it would be enough to completely lock the game. Answer choice B, R goes second. Now, that does trigger something. If R is second, then U is going to have to be out, right? If you trigger this, then U is... Oh, but that's pretty good, because if U is out, the QT block gets forced in. So QT is going to go into 3 and 4. We can actually probably resolve that right now. So if R was to go second, once more, you'll have to kick out U. So U will be out. The QT block fits into 3 and 4, and then S is going to have to go into position 1. That resolves everything. The best answer choice to question number 14 is B. Lastly, question number 15. Let's take a look. Which of the following cannot be true? I suppose. Let's see what we can do. Answer choice A. R runs immediately before S. Now, historically, we haven't really seen that, have we? Yeah, there's never been an opportunity for an RS block. I mean, this doesn't count, obviously, since S is actually out. But, I mean, could we have one? Is there anything inherently wrong with having an RS block? Obviously, it wouldn't fit into 1 and 2 because S can't go second, and it can't go into 3 and 4 because S can't go fourth. So R and S, though, in 2 and 3, that seems plausible, though, doesn't it? Let's quickly run it. Let's see if there's anything wrong with that. If we put an RS block into 2 and 3, then R is second. Oh, that's going to run into problems, isn't it? Because then now U is going to have to be out, and yeah, that's not going to work because we cannot have a QT block. There's no space to maintain this guy. So that then is impossible. This breaks. The best answer to question number 15 is A. This cannot be true. Just in case though, let's take a quick look at the other answer choices. Could we have had an SQ block at any point in time? Now, again, historically we haven't, although in this scenario, I think we could have pulled it off, couldn't we? Because it seems like the QT block could easily fit into here. And then since R is not second, that just means that U will have to be in and R will be out. That seems legit. So answer choice B easily could have happened. Answer choice C, could we have an ST block? And historically we've seen it right here, so that's an easy disqualifier. We can get rid of answer choice C. Answer choice D, could we have a TR block? And yes, we've seen that right here as well, so that gets rid of answer choice D. Answer choice E, could we have a UT block? And we actually, yeah, we've seen that right there. So that would get rid of E. The best answer choice here, once again, is A for question number 15.